So following the farming that I was doing in the Scarlet Monastery Cathedral video that I brought out recently, I have found myself with a massive abundance of silk cloth, and that led me to thinking that a good idea for a video might be what to do in these sorts of situations where you find yourself with a very large amount of a particular crafting material in order to be able to optimize and make the most gold out of it. So let's dive in. So the first thing I want to talk about is that in today's video we are going to be using silk cloth primarily as the example, and we're going to be using tailoring as the example profession for this video. Now these same premises are transferable to basically any material and any profession providing you have access to both, and also I do want to make it very clear, like I always do, that these are always going to be subject to the potential for loss. If you are ever making purchases or adapting the value of an item, there is always the chance that the market might not shift with you and things might not go your way. However, today's video is a relatively safe one, so let's dive in. So following emptying out my mailbox of all of the posts that have been sent from my main to this alt that has tailoring, I find myself with hundreds of silk cloth, and the very first thing that I do in a situation like this is open up the first of the two add-ons that we're going to talk about today, which is TSM crafting. Now this is open by default if you have TSM installed whenever you open the crafting profession window that would normally display the default Blizzard UI. So for example, in this example we're using tailoring, and that's what you can see on the screen here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm simply going to click in the filter box that appears on this TSM screen, and then shift click on the item that I have an abundance of in my bag. This is then going to show all of the things that I can make within this profession that use that item. Now, when I'm looking down this list, I'm looking for a few things, but primarily what I'm looking for is going to be the profit that is listed in the profit section of the display. Now, this is in principle the profit that you would make per item if you were to purchase all of the materials on the auction house at current prices at the time you're looking at, and sell the item on the auction house for the price that it is currently up for. Now, these are inherently variable, and they are also subject to people making wild estimations on values of items. So it is not unlikely that you will on occasion find that there is an item that says it has a very high profit margin, and then when you look at the item it's absolute trash, and it's simply that some people have posted it to the auction house for this obscene value. So do bear that in mind and don't do anything stupid. If there is an item that is a trivial grey or white pair of gloves that you can craft and it says they're going to sell for 10 gold, they are not going to sell for 10 gold, so don't make them. Please do use a bit of common sense. But for the most part, these can be quite decent indications of the profit values that you are potentially going to get when crafting these items. So with our silk cloth example, the very first thing that we are going to want to do that we've noticed is that the silk cloth itself needs to first be transformed into bolts. Now with tailoring as an example, this in of itself is often a highly profitable activity to do. With regards to the silk cloth, the reason we're going to do this is because we actually need bolts of silk cloth as opposed to silk cloth itself for any of the particular crafts that we're going to be using. But simply by turning the silk cloth into bolts, you can see it's roughly 2 gold extra that I'm going to make in value for every bolt that I craft. So when I'm crafting 100 bolts at 2 silver a time, that's 2 gold that I'm going to be making simply by pressing craft all, and then wandering off and making a cup of tea for a couple of minutes while it does it. May not be the highest profit margin, but of course it's very low value mats, and also done pretty much entirely AFK while I make myself a cup of tea. Not a bad start. The next stage that you're going to want to do when you have an abundance of an item is to go down this list and see if there are any particularly high profit margin items that you can make. So I found when I was recording this footage that I was going to make a few of the shirts that I had the access to make with the silk cloth, as well as a couple of little green items that all had pretty decent profit margins. And what I did when I decided I wanted to make them, with the use of TSM crafting, you are able to create queues of things you wanted to craft. So what I did was I worked my way up and down the list, finding things I wanted to craft, arbitrarily deciding how many of them I wanted to give a trial to for how well they were going to sell and try and get that sort of understanding of how many I was going to need. and then I added that many to the craft queue. I did this by clicking the number box at the bottom with the plus sign on it to get to the value I wanted, and then clicking queue, and then you will see the item appear in the crafting queue to the right. Now, this crafting queue will then also show you all the items you've added to it, the estimated cost for all the materials for all of those items, as well as the estimated profit you're going to make by crafting them all. At this point, it makes things very simple, and it gives you a good overview of what it is you're going to be spending to make a certain degree of profit. Now, this next step is probably the most useful thing that TSM Crafting offers, and that is this gathering tab that you see at the top of the window. Once you click on the gathering tab and make sure that you have the appropriate profession selected on the tabs on the left hand side for what you are wanting to craft right now, you can click to gather the materials, at which point you will get a task list appear on your screen. Now, this task list is going to tell you what you need and where you're going to get it, whether it's buying it from the auction house, posting it from your alts, or whether you're going to be buying things from vendors. Now, this is incredibly useful not only for the very easy to see and understand list of items that you're going to need, but also when you visit, for example, the auction house and you open up the shopping section on the auction house window, you are able to click on your task list for it to simply scan for everything that you need and purchase from there. This means that you don't have to manually type in each item, you can simply get a big long list of all the things that you need, at which point you can decide if you want to purchase them based off of the price that they are on at the time. This is incredibly useful, and it does also mean that you are able to see everything simultaneously, which is advantageous if you are looking to purchase, let's say, 3 items for the crafting of something, and 2 of the items are worthwhile purchasing at the prices they're at, but one of them is extremely expensive and you can't get your hands on it. You may or may not want to decide whether you want to buy the other 2 items at that point and have them in your bags until you can get that 3rd item cheaper, or whether you want to spend that little bit extra on the 3rd item because of how cheap the other 2 are. So it lets you have all that information at the same time to influence your decision making process. Now, once you have gone and bought all of your materials and you've gathered them all from the mailbox and you've purchased everything from the vendors, all you're actually going to need to do is open up TSM Crafting once more and click Craft Next on your crafting queue on the side, and it's going to start creating every one of the items that you wanted to make from your crafting list. Now, when you click Craft Next, if you say, let's say you have 3 items to craft and you're making 3 of each of those items, you only need to click Craft Next once per item. So if you click it to make 3 belts, it will make 3 of those belts, and then if you had 3 shoulders and 3 chest pieces, once it's made the belts, click it again, it'll make the shoulders, click it again, it will make the chest pieces. That level of automation just means that even though you may have relatively small profit margins per item, it's not as tedious as you may think to actually go through this process and craft everything that you need. And once you've done that, that is you all sorted. You've created these items that you can then go and sell on the auction house and have greatly improved your profit margins thanks to TSM Crafting. Now, as fantastic as that is about going to do it for TSM Crafting. However, as I alluded to earlier in the video, I did actually want to talk about a much lesser known second add-on that works well with TSM Crafting as well, and that is Missing Trade Skills List, or MTSL for short. Now, what this is a very simple add-on that allows you to see what patterns and recipes you are missing for any given profession when you are logged onto that character. So, for example, I'm going to check my tailoring here, and what you do need to do, however, is you do need to switch from the TSM Crafting window UI back to the Blizzard UI. I don't know why MTSL doesn't show up on this particular window, but it doesn't. So if you click the button to switch to WoW UI at the top, you'll find the MTSL button. Once you click on this, you'll be able to see all of the recipes that you are missing for that profession. They are all listed here on the left hand side for you, and when you are reading down them, it's very easy to see whether an item is at a skill level that you can craft or not, based on whether the number in the bracket that is the skill requirement is in green or red. You can see the name of the item, and if you click onto any given item, it will show you where you get that recipe from. Now, this is incredibly handy if, let's say, like my example today that I used the silk cloth for, if you find yourself with a lot of silk cloth and you don't have anything that you can craft that's going to get you a good profit margin. By using this add-on, you may be able to find that there is an easily attainable recipe that you can get cheap and easily that may give you a big profit margin on something you can craft using that material. Now, this is incredibly valuable in my opinion, and it's also something that personally I just like as being something of a completionist. I feel that if I have access to every recipe, then it's going to enable me to have better profit margins potentially, and that is obviously something that I'm very interested in. Now, you can use this as and when you need a recipe to make profit from, or you can use this more regularly just to try and collect everything. But it is definitely an add-on that you are going to want to pick up to optimize the amount of gold that you can make from your professions. Now that is going to about do it for today's video, guys. I do hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider liking the video or maybe even subscribing to the channel. It does help out a lot, and I hope to see you in the next one. Later.